This is the third in our series of videos about getting XBRL into Excel using Power Query. In the last video, we managed to set up a dynamic variable to change the ticker for this particular Power Web query. This time we are going to set up a dynamic variable, but we're going to do it slightly differently, slightly more complicatedly, just to demonstrate perhaps a neater solution to this problem. So let's have a look, a little recap of what we did last time. So if we double click on the editor here, that will enable us to look at our existing query. And if you saw our last video, you will have seen that we replaced the ticker, which was MSFT, with this dynamic version, which basically takes it from a table we set up called company, and it finds the first cell in the first row and uses that instead. Now that is one way of doing it, and we can also do it a different way, which I am about to show you. So if we come out of here, and last time, if you remember, like I said, we set up a variable ticker. The other variable that we need to worry about, or actually the number of variables we need to worry about, but this time we're going to worry about the token, which may change if you are not a premium subscriber of ours. You may need to regularly change your token as it will go out of date. So let's set up a box for you to be able to change that. So let's put our ticker in, and this is a make-believe ticker. It will work for this example because I set it up to, but 99 is not usually a valid ticker, but for this particular example it will be. And let's tell ourselves what it is. We'll give it the title, if we can spell it correctly, of token. There we go. And similarly, like we did with the ticker, we can just go there and turn this into a table very quickly by just doing that. Yes, table has header rows. And we have a table, and let's rename it to something sensible. And we'll call this table authenticate. Again, struggling with my spelling there. There we go. And that is the name of our table. So that's all set up. Now, what we're going to do this time, rather than insert this directly into our query via an edit there, what we're going to do is actually turn this into a query in itself. So if we go back to our data menu, which is what we used in the very first video to create a Power Web query, and instead of getting a query from the web, we can get a query, but pretty much from anywhere, because that's the beauty of this get and transform. The idea is that you can mash up data from everywhere, be that an external source or a very simple internal source, like for example an existing table from within the existing sheet. So if we go down here, we will find, yeah, from table range. So that's exactly what we want to do, and it creates a query. Now there's two lines to this. We go to the first line because this will become more familiar. That is remarkably like the bit of Power M that we inserted into the main query last time round. So we know all about that. What this line does here is it changes the type. Now, tables in Excel are very sensitive to what type of data it has, and it's very strict about a table has to know what type of data is in any particular column. So it said, right, I've had a look at this, and this is clearly a number, so that is the type that I am going to set. Now, that is a problem because actually we are trying to construct a web request which is text. So it will complain about this. So what we're going to do is change the type. Now this is actually very easy. You don't have to get into the wherewithals or wherewithouts of the Power M language. All we need to do is to tell it that we need to change the type. So if we actually go to our table here, and you'll see data type here. It says it's a whole number. That's what it's turned it into. But we want it to be text. So all we have to do is go and choose text here, and it will apply that step. But it works out that it's already applied a similar step. So it says, do you want to replace what you've already done? Of course, that's exactly what we want to do. So we can just say replace current. And then when we look up at this line, when it's finished doing what it's doing, it's going off and doing it. There we go. It said the type is text, which is what we want. Now that's great. The other thing that we ought to think about is the fact that in our query we don't take the whole table because it's a single piece of data that we need to insert in our main query. So we can either do that within our main query, or we could do it here. And if we do it here, that will make it a little bit cleaner. So I like to make alterations like that as close as possible to where the problem, as it were, has occurred. So what I'm going to do is going to basically deal with the fact that we don't want the entire table, we just want that first cell. So similarly, we need to tell it, like we did last time, that it is in the first row, which the first row in any kind of array is 0, and then we need to tell it what column it is, and we can see that the column is token over there, so we're going to set that as token. And so now it will bring back a single value. As you can see, what you see there is a table, because that's what it's returning. If I click return now, you will see there's just a value. The table has disappeared because that is exactly what we're told to do. And that is what we want to insert in our main query. So that's all set up, which is good. And we don't even need to come out of the Power Editor to go into the other query, because over here we can actually move from query to query. So we can go up to our main query and go and have a look at our source line here. Remember, this was the bit we already set up, which takes the ticker. So you can't quite see it because it's on the line below, but there you go, there's that bit there. And what we want to do now is we want to dynamically insert the token. And we can dynamically do that by referencing the query we've just set up. So we need to worry about what bits are static. So what we're going to do is everything up to that equals is going to stay the same. So we're going to make that just a text string as it was previously. And this bit, the ampersand EID, is also a text string. So we need to put starting quotes around that, and we need to join it with everything else, so we need to put our ampersand in there, and similarly we need an ampersand to join our 0. Well, our token is not going to be 0, it's going to be 99. So we want this to be dynamic. If we put quotes around it, then that would work, but what we want to do is replace it with our dynamic token. So all we have to do is to give it the name of the query that we set up, which is simply called token. And that's it. So fingers crossed, when I click return, it will still work. See, that's not so good. That is because I didn't actually call the query, as I'm sure you noticed. I didn't actually call it token. I called it, because I wanted it to have a different name to the column, I called it authenticate. And so now I've given it the title. It's even written over here. Can't even look at stuff properly. Now we've given it its actual name. This should work. Splendid. There we go, and it's brought about all the different sections of the table, and we already deal with the fact that we want the financials in one of these other bits. I think it's that one there, isn't it? Yeah, that tells it that we want that table, and so yeah, it's basically all done. And so yeah, we've just come out of the editor. It's very important that we say keep, because it will then keep all the changes we've just made, including changes to both. And yeah, it's just going away and doing it. So here it goes, gets the data, and now it's loading. So it's loading the table, and just to prove that the new table has come through. I think it's in that sheet, isn't it? Yes, it's in that sheet. So that is, oh yeah, it's what it's done. It's just created. Yeah, that's that query that we set up the authenticate row there, because it's also bringing it down a value. But what we can do, because that's so by default it kind of says, yep, it's a yeah, it's, we want to create a table out of it, so that's what it's done. It's created a table over here. But we can, if I remember rightly, we can change that to load to, I think this will work, and we can say we only want it to be a connection. There we go. And the query is currently connected, yeah, blah blah blah. Do I wish to? Yes, I do want to get rid of the table. There we go. And as you can see, this table on this sheet that I was not expecting has disappeared. So we can, you know, get rid of that sheet for complete neatness. Yes, get rid of that. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're back to our two sheets, one with our inputs and one with our output. And this query is what we call a connection only query, still picking up the data from this cell over here, but it doesn't output anything to Excel. So that's another way of working it. I like that because it's cleaner and neater, but you can do it the other way as well.